I, F27, married my husband, M35, 2 months ago, and I regret it already. So I had an arranged marriage. Now, this might be a bit usual for some of you, but it's quite normal in our culture, and it might not be as backwards as you imagine it to be. Arranged marriages are less dramatic than it's portrayed. So what happens is our parents usually look for someone that suits us and connects us to that person. If we like them, we can continue with the relationship with marriage in mind. It's like meeting on a dating app if the dating app was your parents. I met my husband through an arranged marriage proposal brought to us by a trusted family friend who spoke very highly of this guy. In fact, everyone spoke highly of him. He lived in another country, and his family was looking for a bride for him here in his home country. When we spoke to each other, all was well. He seemed like a good guy. I can't say that I was in love, but I wasn't looking for an immediate love. Just a good partnership I can build a beautiful relationship on. Is that naive? I don't know. His family was good as well. We quickly became close and spoke every day, and it was clear we saw potential in each other. Our families became close as well. We liked each other. In a few months, he came to my country, and we spent a few weeks going on dates and getting to know each other before marrying. It was a small, simple registration. All was good, or so I thought. I started noticing small things, then big things, then small things again. I kept telling myself, oh, I don't need to make a big deal of this, or we are all human, we are all flawed, or that wasn't intentional. At this point, I just need someone to tell me if these things should bother me, or are they normal? I haven't really been in a proper relationship in my life, so I don't know what I should be bothered by and what I shouldn't be. We went on a short honeymoon after the wedding. During the trip, if I'd ask him to carry a bag for a bit, he'd complain about it and be irritated. He got angry at some driver for no reason and let it affect his whole mood. He missed a tour he has booked but not paid for. And he got so upset and angry he said some harsh words to me as well and needed a cigarette to calm down. Also, he'd constantly go on about what a worthless degree I'm pursuing. I called him out for it, but he says, no, baby, I wasn't putting you down. I was just stating the facts. You can't be mad about me stating the fact. It's just not a degree you can earn much from. Also, I'm a virgin. For cultural context, virginity is highly prized in our community, so ideally a girl should be a virgin till she marries. I know. That wasn't the reason I was a virgin. I just didn't like anyone enough to casually have sleep with before. So our first time together was my first time. I told him that very clearly because I was a lot scared. He was nice to me and took care of me in bed when we were just messing around. However, when it came to time for penetration, he couldn't push himself inside me. I got scared, which made things worse, I guess. And he got so mad about that. He didn't start shouting at me, but I could see it in his face. He just walked away and completely left me alone. He came back and wiped himself with a towel and threw it towards me. Then he ignored me. I was so hurt that I went to the bathroom and cried my eyes out. I think he heard me and later felt bad because he suddenly pretended like he didn't care that we couldn't successfully have sex at all. He continued to be very sweet to me the whole day. But the next few days we tried again, but I was more scared now, honestly. Mostly because he wouldn't listen to me when I told him it hurt or, can we take a break? On the last day of the trip, I begged him to stop because it was hurting so much, but he kept saying, no, we should keep going because we can't lose the progress we have made. I think my body didn't trust him at this point, so it wasn't cooperating at all. Anyway, as he was leaving back to another country the next day, didn't want to keep any grudges. I thought, okay, maybe he wants to properly have his sex once at least before he leaves since we will be apart for a while again. We went back to each other's countries and continued long-distance marriage. I'll be going to live with him in the next year, as that's when the visa will be processed. I keep thinking about these things, though, and it doesn't sit right with me. I want to throw up when I remember how he treated me. He also kept asking me if I had any trauma in my past or whatever. I don't have any because I have barely had a romantic past. At first, I really blamed myself when he couldn't insert into me. Maybe I was the problem for not relaxing faster. But then I realized we only had a 3-day honeymoon to do all this. It's my first time having sex. He knew that. He should have been more patient than that. He also didn't really believe me when I said I had no such traumatic past. He kept saying he wouldn't be upset, to just tell him the truth, and he just wants to understand me. But I was telling him the truth. He then said that his fingers slipped to me too easily, so he assumed I was lying about my virginity. I was so confused. His fingers slipped too easily, but he couldn't insert himself, so he just assumed I wasn't virgin. Anyway, bottom line is, he didn't believe me, and that's why he was angry at me, because he thought I lied. He also has started picking fights every weekend. First time he scolded me, I didn't do something he wanted me to do on time, some paperwork. While he never gave me a deadline, I did agree I should have been more proactive than I was. But I didn't think he needed to scream at me over the phone for that when there was no hurry for that paperwork to begin with. Later, he profusely apologized, admitted his mistake, and told me it was a very bad day at work. I didn't forgive him for a few days because I was so shaken up, but later I told him that he can't take his anger out on me like that, and I let the fight go. But he has continued picking fights with me every weekend. It's quite tricky because he doesn't start it like a fight. He just starts criticizing me on something completely unnecessary. My research project topic, for example. He doesn't even know anything about my degree, but he started going on and on about how incorrect my research is. He then started saying bad things about me as well. That's what happens in these fights. He starts with one thing, and suddenly he's being like this with everything. Later he'd apologize or tell me that's not what he meant. He says he's just not good at wording things right. Then there was the fact that I have turned my blue scene tick off on my WhatsApp messages. Apparently he said that people will think I'm the wrong kind of girl if I kept it off, so he's concerned. This turned into an ugly, long fight because I refused to back down and because I refused to listen to him and turn it back on. He wasn't being reasonable, I thought, and I am not the kind of person who does anything because of what other people think. I also asked him to call my dad because he hasn't called him in 2 months, and he got so angry about that. He said that he does all his duties, what else more do I want, and that he talks to my parents enough. That he's so busy, he doesn't have the time with all his work. But it should be noted that he does have the time to get drunk every weekend with his friends, though. We had like a week-long fight this time. He even dragged my mother into this by calling her. He tried to complain about me, saying I wasn't an obedient wife because I refused to turn the blue tick on in WhatsApp. He also tried to bring more criticism, asking me why I came home at 10 p.m. and asked, is this how a girl behaves? The funny thing is I just go to cafes and bookstores and my dad drops me home. However, I didn't let him get away with his criticism and anger and false accusations. I held my ground and stood up for myself. Then he has no choice but to accept his mistakes and ask for forgiveness. I reminded him of everything that happened during our honeymoon as well. How he hurt me. He said he's ashamed and he's so sorry. He has basically begged for a fresh start. He says he'll never do this again. Also, I have to mention this. There's this girl from my school day who I'm friends with. Weirdly enough, this girl and my husband were proposed to each other a few years ago. They didn't like each other at the end, so they didn't work out. However, they still follow each other on Insta. I saw that she was a follower and asked him about it on the early days of us knowing each other. He told me everything about the proposal, so I wasn't bothered by it. Our community is a small community, and everyone is each other's exes, LOL. But after we are married, he still hadn't removed her from his following list. I didn't think much of it as I too forget who I'm following sometimes. But about a week ago, I just randomly decided to check her Insta. I didn't even know why I did that. When I went to her page, though, my heart dropped. He had liked a photo of hers after we got married. And it wasn't just a photo, it was a photo where she's clearly showing a lot of skin. I was so mad. Not just because of the fact that he did it, but also because these are my school friends, and they know I'm married to him, and my husband is liking a girl's thirst pics. I was angry and sad and hurt and betrayed and embarrassed. His excuse was that he wasn't thinking too much. He likes everyone's peoples, and he barely looks at these photos. He just likes them. But when I told him how I felt, he was very sorry and immediately unliked and unfollowed her. He said he wasn't thinking, and he admitted his mistake. I don't trust him anymore, though. We had just been married for 2 months now. Initially, I forgave him for a lot of the fights because I thought that misunderstandings are natural since we were still getting to know each other. But I don't feel any ounce of respect or affection for him anymore. I'm so tired of this marriage. I know people say marriage is not a bed of roses, that it's hard. But is it this hard? Is it supposed to be like this? I know humans are flawed, but are they this flawed? If this is what marriage is, I don't think I can accept it. Honestly, I have waited my whole life to be married. I had lots of guys ask me out throughout the years, but I never went for any of it because I have always wanted something real, something for life. I didn't want to date around and have fun, even though I had many opportunities to do it, because I thought that it's not fulfilling like a marriage will be. If this is what I wasted my whole life on, I feel so stupid. Because is this all marriage is?